You know that feeling when the ground suddenly disappears beneath your feet? That's exactly what I felt that Monday morning when I opened my banking app, where there should have been 285,237 and 42ers, 10 long years of savings. There was only $1,812.67. And the worst part? I knew exactly who was responsible. My name is Christine Reynolds. I'm 46 years old, and for over 2 decades, I lived beside a man who never truly knew me. That morning, just 3 days after our divorce was finalized, I was in my kitchen savoring that first cup of coffee with the kind of freedom only someone who spent 22 years in a suffocating marriage can understand. I opened my banking app to do what I had been looking forward to for months, plan my new life. That's when I saw the balance, and my heart stopped. I checked again, thinking it was a glitch, logged into the website, same result. With trembling fingers, I reviewed the transaction history. A transfer of $283,424.75 had been made Friday night, just hours after the divorce was finalized, to an account I didn't recognize. Daniel and I had been married under a full separation of assets. His idea, ironically, back when he believed his real estate career would make him a millionaire, while I would always be just a bank employee. While Daniel bounced between massive commissions and long dry spells, spending impulsively during the highs, I built a steady career at First National Bank. I always kept a separate account, regularly setting aside a portion of my salary, my personal safety net, which grew to nearly $285,000 over 10 years. Every cent represented a quiet sacrifice for the sake of security. My first call was to the bank, where they told me the transfer appeared legitimate, made with all the correct credentials and authentication. My second call was to Daniel. Daniel, I need to talk to you about a transfer from my account. There was a moment of silence, followed by a laugh that chilled me to the bone. Did I take something, darling? Good luck proving it. Separation of assets works both ways, doesn't it? Consider it my unofficial pension. How did you get access to my account? I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. I lived with you for 22 years, Christine. You really think I didn't pay attention? Always so careful with your passwords, yet so predictable. Our anniversary, Tyler's birthday, always the same. Variations, I hung up feeling a toxic mix of rage, humiliation, and fear. A decade's worth of savings, meant to support Tyler's education and ensure my retirement, had vanished in an instant. What Daniel never understood in all those years was what I actually did at the bank. Something with computers, he would say dismissively when people asked. He never cared to know more than how much I earned and how we could spend it. To him, I was just a stable source of income for when his real estate ventures went sideways. I looked at my bank ID badge on the table. Christine Reynolds, Senior Banking Security Analyst. Specialist in detecting and investigating complex financial fraud. For 15 years, I've been the one First National Bank calls when financial criminals try to disappear with money that isn't theirs, and Daniel had just made the biggest mistake of his life. If you've ever felt underestimated by someone close to you, share your story in the comments. And if this is your first time visiting this channel, don't forget to subscribe to hear more real stories from people just like you and me. The next morning, I called my best friend, Monica Sharma, a lawyer specializing in financial law for over 15 years. Christine, that's awful, she said after hearing my story. We could sue, but it'll be your word against his. Without concrete proof that he made the transfer, it's going to be tough. He probably used a VPN, a device not registered in your name. He has no idea who I am, I replied, a calculated calm replacing my initial panic. Daniel never really cared about my job. To him, I just did stuff with computers. At the bank. Monica was silent for a moment, understanding what I was implying. You have access to resources most people don't, she concluded. Exactly. And I plan to use them. That same morning, I walked into First National Bank not as a desperate client, but as Christine Reynolds, Senior Cybersecurity Analyst with 15 years of experience and access to tools and protocols most customers didn't even know existed. Walter Griffin, my mentor and the director of the security department, welcomed me into his office. At 62, Walter was respected across the entire financial sector and had taught me nearly everything I knew about fraud detection. Robbed. By your own husband, he observed after I told him what happened. Ex-husband, I corrected automatically. Walter adjusted his glasses thoughtfully. Technically, this is a personal matter, but considering it involves the potential compromise of a high-level bank employee's security, it's also an internal issue. We need to understand how your credentials were breached. That definition opened doors that would usually remain closed. With Walter's authorization for an internal vulnerability assessment, I called in Rebecca Torres, my 40-year-old colleague and specialist in tracking suspicious transactions. So we're finally going to meet the infamous Daniel, Rebecca commented as she set up our systems. Over the years, my colleagues had heard enough stories about my husband to form a solid opinion of him. The guy who thinks you just help people open bank accounts. The first step was to fully map out the transaction. To a regular investigator, the transfer would appear to come from my usual computer, but our advanced system detected subtle anomalies. Check this out, Rebecca pointed to the screen. The session was started from an IP address masked by a VPN, but look at the typing patterns. Totally different from yours. Keystroke signature, Rebecca explained to Monica, who had joined the investigation as my legal representative. Everyone types with unique rhythm and patterns. Our system records this as an extra security measure. Whoever made this transfer was definitely not Christine. We followed the money trail. The transfer had been sent to a temporary account at a digital bank, then quickly moved to another account, and finally converted into cryptocurrency. Classic method to try to cover up the money trail, I remarked. Amateur, Rebecca countered with a slight smile. Use techniques probably picked up from some internet forum thinking they're foolproof. A real expert would know that's not nearly enough these days. Daniel always underestimated tech he couldn't show off at a party, I replied, remembering how he used to mock my boring computer work while showing off his new smartwatch at social gatherings. For 3 days, we worked meticulously, reconstructing every step of the transaction. What Daniel didn't know was that our bank, as part of a task force against financial crimes, had access to advanced cryptocurrency tracking tools that most people believed to be completely anonymous. On our third day of investigation, Rebecca walked into my office wearing a smile I knew all too well, the same one she had when we finally tracked down a particularly elusive transfer. We've got everything, she announced, placing a folder on my desk. Original IP before the GI, VPN, timestamps, follow-up transfers, even the brokerage where the crypto was converted back to dollars and deposited into a new account under the name Derek Richards. A chill ran down my spine. Derek Richards. That's Daniel's middle name and his mother's last name. He uses that alias for online betting accounts. The most damning piece of evidence came from Daniel's own phone. With a warrant Monica secured based on the initial findings, we discovered that he had searched for how to access someone else's bank account and untraceable bank transfers in the weeks leading up to our divorce. He really thought he could steal from a banking security expert, Walter said, shaking his head with a mix of disbelief and reluctant admiration. In all my years in this field, I've never seen anything so arrogant, Rebecca offered. I was going to say stupid. Walter smiled. In that moment, looking at the mountain of evidence we had collected, I felt a strange mix of sadness and empowerment. For 22 years, I lived with a man who saw me as insignificant, as someone with no special skills. Now I was going to show Daniel exactly who I was. With everything organized, Monica suggested a strategic move. Let's offer a deal before going to the police. If he returns the full amount, we'll consider not filing criminal charges. I want to see his face when he realizes who I really am, I admitted. This wasn't just about getting my money back. It was about finally being seen after 22 years of being underestimated. Daniel agreed to meet us, clearly confident he'd walk away untouched. The restaurant we picked was quiet and discreet, the kind of place where banking executives discuss mergers and acquisitions away from prying ears. I arrived deliberately 15 minutes early, choosing a strategic table with a clear view of the entrance. Monica arrived 10 minutes later, carrying a genuine leather portfolio that contrasted with my plain file folder. Presentation matters, she said. Daniel arrived right on time, wearing his most expensive suit, the one he always wore to impress high-value clients. He had that smug smile I knew too well, the same one he used when he thought he'd outsmarted someone in a real estate deal. "Christine." "Monica?" he greeted casually, as if we were meeting for a social brunch. "I hope you didn't arrange this meeting to throw around baseless accusations. That would be awkward." Monica placed her sleek folder on the table. "Actually, we're here to make you an offer." "An offer?" Daniel chuckled, glancing around like he was about to share a joke with an invisible audience. "This should be interesting. Return the $283,424 to 75 you illegally transferred from Christine's account, and we'll consider not filing criminal charges for bank fraud, digital identity theft, and money laundering." Daniel's smile faltered for just a second before he pulled it back together. "I don't know what you're talking about, and good luck proving anything." That was my cue. I opened my plain folder and began laying out documents on the table, in an orderly fashion. "These are the complete records of the transfer, including the original IP before the VPN you used." I slid the first document forward. "This is your phone's search history showing premeditated planning." The second document, "Here is the full money trail leading to the account under the name Derek Richards." The third document, "And this," I said as I slid the final document across the table, "is a preliminary FBI report on the case, since crossing state lines to commit financial fraud is a federal crime." The color drained from Daniel's face as he looked over the technical documents he clearly didn't fully understand, but recognized as threatening. His eyes jumped from one paper to the next, desperately searching for an escape route that didn't exist. "How did you—" "I'm not just a bank employee, Daniel. I'm a Senior Banking Security Analyst, specialized in investigating exactly the kind of amateur scheme you tried to pull off. Did you really think I wouldn't know exactly how to trace my own money?" For the first time in our 22 years together, I saw something I'd never witnessed before. Daniel Reynolds, speechless. No plan B, no convincing story to slip away. The man who always had a way out, now cornered by his own arrogance. "The money's already invested," he tried to bluff, his voice losing its usual confidence. "I can't just—" Monica cut him off. "Judge Simmons presides over the court on Monday. She has a particular dislike for financial fraud against ex-spouses. We're offering this as a courtesy, considering you're Tyler's parents. A chance to settle this without your son watching his father face criminal charges." The mention of Tyler finally cracked his facade. Our son was in his final year of business school, and the thought of him seeing his father as a criminal seemed to finally hit Daniel. "How much time do I have?" he asked, all arrogance gone. 48 hours, I replied. "And Daniel, if you try anything sneaky, remember, I found you once. I can do it again." As he stood to leave, I noticed his hands trembling slightly. The predator had become the prey, and for the first time, he knew what it felt like to be vulnerable and exposed. "I never thought you'd have the guts," he muttered, adjusting his tie in a nervous gesture I knew all too well. "That was always your problem, Daniel," I said calmly. "You never really knew me." The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. Monica had prepared a detailed agreement. Daniel would return the full amount, plus interest calculated at the market rate, and sign a statement admitting to the unauthorized transfer. In return, we wouldn't file criminal charges. "Will he go through with it?" I asked Monica as we sipped coffee the next morning. "He has no choice," she replied with the confidence that made her one of the most respected attorneys in the city. "Even if he gets another lawyer, anyone with half a brain will say the same thing. Pay up or face far worse consequences." At home, I obsessively checked my bank account. Every hour, sometimes more. Nothing. The first day passed without a sign of a transfer. I started drafting backup plans, preparing to officially involve the FBI if the deadline passed. Late in the afternoon of the second day, my phone rang. It was Tyler. "Mom, something weird happened. Dad just called me asking for a substantial and urgent loan." He sounded desperate, said something about a failed investment. "Is this about the divorce?" I sank into the kitchen chair. Part of me wanted to shield Tyler from this, to preserve whatever image he might still have of his father. But another part knew that, at 23, my son deserved the truth. Tyler, there's something I need to tell you, I began, opting for a simplified but honest version. Your father transferred money from my account without permission after the divorce. We're resolving it. Tyler was silent for several seconds. He's always done this, he finally said, his voice a mix of disappointment and resignation. Acting impulsively with money, then trying to fix the fallout. But stealing from you, after everything you sacrificed for us? Sometimes the people we've known for years can still surprise us, I replied, feeling a wave of pride for the man my son had become, despite the conflicting examples he grew up with. He asked you for money to pay back what he stole from me, I concluded. What did you tell him? I said I needed to think, Tyler replied. But now, I'm going to tell him no. He needs to face the consequences of his choices, right? The call with Tyler had barely ended when Rebecca texted me. Activity detected in Derek Richards' account. He's converting the crypto back to dollars. Exactly 47 hours after our meeting at the restaurant, just as I was mentally preparing. The next legal steps, I got a phone notification. I opened my banking app with trembling fingers. There it was, the transfer. $283,424.75 plus $5,668.50 in calculated interest. The signed document arrived by email moments later, along with a short message from Daniel. It's done. I never thought you were capable of this. That final sentence perfectly summed up our marriage. He never really saw me, never understood what I was capable of. Even at the end, his surprise wasn't about his own actions, but about my ability to stand up to him. I forwarded everything to Monica, who confirmed that the agreement was complete and legally binding. The criminal threat was suspended as agreed, but the document signed by Daniel would be our permanent safeguard in case he ever tried something similar in the future. That night, I slept soundly for the first time since discovering the theft. It wasn't just the relief of recovering my savings, it was the feeling of finally being seen for who I truly was, not just the harmless bank employee, but a competent professional who could no longer be underestimated. The next morning, Walter greeted me with a smile as I walked into the bank. Mission accomplished from what I've heard. Thank you for everything, Walter. I couldn't have done it without your support. You would have found a way, Christine. You always do. He paused. You know, this whole experience made me think about something. What's that? How many people out there are vulnerable like you were, but without the skills or resources to protect themselves? People who don't work in banks, who don't know security experts, who don't know how to track stolen money. His question stayed with me all day. As painful as my experience had been, I had advantages many others didn't. What if I could use that experience to help others? 6 months had passed since the confrontation. The divorce remained finalized, restitution was complete, and Daniel had moved to another state, supposedly to explore new real estate markets. Though we all knew it was to escape local shame. Tyler graduated with honors and accepted an internship in financial consulting, partly inspired by recent events. I want to help people protect their futures, he explained, and understand that financial security isn't just about how much you earn, but about integrity and planning. As for me, the experience brought unexpected, and surprisingly, positive changes. 1 week after everything was resolved, Walter called me into his office. I expected a conversation about returning to normal, maybe some advice on how to strengthen my personal digital security. Instead, I found not only Walter, but also Rebecca and the bank's vice president. Christine, Walter began, we have a proposal for you. The proposal was unexpected. To lead a new initiative at the bank focused on educating clients about personal financial security and fraud prevention, particularly for women going through separations and divorces. No, one understands the vulnerability and the tactics used in these situations better than you, Walter argued. You turned your personal experience into professional expertise, and frankly, your story is powerful enough to really make people pay attention. I accepted the position, expanding my career in a way I'd never imagined. Our first workshop attracted more than 100 participants, many sharing stories painfully similar to mine. At the end of the session, a woman in her 60s shook my hand, tears in her eyes. "I lost everything in my divorce because I didn't know how to protect myself," she said. "You're giving women tools I never had." Monica, who regularly collaborated in our workshops providing complimentary legal guidance, later observed, "You know what's ironic? Daniel tried to strip you of your financial security, but he inadvertently created a platform for you to help hundreds of others protect theirs." The program grew quickly, expanding to branches in 3 different states. I was invited to speak at conferences, appear on financial security podcasts, and even write a book based on my personal and professional experiences. One quiet afternoon, while updating my will to include an education fund for future grandchildren and an endowment for our financial security program, I received an unexpected message from Daniel. "Tyler told me about your new program at the bank. Looks like you finally found your voice. Maybe if I had really listened before, everything would have turned out differently." I didn't reply. Some lessons come too late to save a relationship, but it's never too late to recognize your own worth. But the real twist came 3 months later, when I received a call from a real estate agent in Phoenix, where Daniel had settled. "Mrs. Reynolds, I'm calling because your name is listed as the emergency contact for Mr. Daniel Reynolds. Unfortunately, he suffered a severe stroke yesterday and is hospitalized. I flew to Phoenix the same day, bringing Tyler with me." At the hospital, we learned that Daniel had set up a fraudulent real estate investment scheme that was now collapsing. The pressure from the preliminary investigations had apparently contributed to his health breakdown. While reviewing his financial documents to help organize his affairs during his incapacitation, we uncovered something shocking. Daniel had attempted the same scheme with his elderly mother, transferring her savings into accounts he controlled, supposedly for safe investments. Using the exact same skills that allowed me to recover my own money, I tracked down and reclaimed my ex-mother-in-law's entire life savings before Daniel could squander them in his desperate scheme. When she found out what had happened and how I had protected her future, despite everything Daniel had done to me, she cried as she held my hands. "Christine, he always said you were just a bank clerk. How could he have been so blind?" The final irony came when Daniel regained consciousness. The stroke had severely affected his memory and ability to communicate. The man who built his life around persuasive words and manipulation now depended on the honesty and compassion of others. In the midst of this tragedy, I found myself doing something I never imagined, helping arrange long-term care for the man who had tried to steal from me. Not for him, but for his elderly mother, who didn't deserve to suffer for his mistakes, and for Tyler's sake, who, despite it all, still loved his father. 1 year after the original incident, I received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a handwritten letter, the writing shaky and awkward. Daniel, still recovering, had spent weeks practicing to write these few lines. "Christine, you saved me after I tried to steal from you. Why?" Daniel. It took me 3 days to respond. Eventually I wrote, "Daniel, I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Some people only measure value in money. Others understand that integrity and compassion are the true measures of wealth. You taught me the first lesson. I chose to live by the second. Christine." Today, 5 years later, our financial safety program has already helped over 10,000 people protect their futures. Tyler now leads the financial department of the foundation we created, using his expertise to ensure we can continue expanding our reach. Daniel lives in a quality-assisted living facility, funded by the money I recovered for his mother before he could lose it. His recovery was partial. He can walk and care for himself, but he never fully regained his verbal fluency or the cognitive ability to manage complex finances. Life is full of unexpected twists. When Daniel told me good luck proving it after stealing my savings, he had no idea that I wouldn't just prove it, but that I would use the experience to transform my career and help thousands of others. And he certainly never imagined that one day he would rely on the same woman he tried to ruin financially. When my ex-husband stole a decade's worth of savings from my account and said, "Good luck proving it," he truly believed I was just a bank clerk with no means to fight back. What he never understood in 22 years of marriage was that I didn't just work at the bank. I was a specialist in banking security and financial fraud tracking. But the most important lesson I learned wasn't about revenge. It was about using our skills to protect not just ourselves, but others as well. Sometimes the greatest power we have is the one others don't realize we possess. And sometimes, true strength lies not just in reclaiming what's yours, but in using your knowledge to build something new and better. If this story resonated with you in any way, if you've ever been underestimated or know someone who's been through something similar, share it in the comments. Every story shared might help someone else find the courage to stand up for themselves. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories that reveal the power of human resilience.